Gorilla comm going 10-8. What happened there? Well, to make my low power repeater successful or have the most capabilities and performances I can, location is pretty much everything. This hilltop that I'm at right now, it's got a pretty good flat sort of plateau up here, and if I place my repeater, let's say right here let's say this was the middle of this hill, the hill itself will absorb a lot of the energy to point out towards the bottom of the foothills. So it would have been better if that box, the repeater box, was placed a little bit above the ground, like let's say on top of this tower or on top of this little building here, so it would clear this ground here, this plateau ground. The hilltop that I've installed it at, it's a more pronounced sort of peak, so it kind of is like putting it on a tower because it has a steep drop off towards the side of it for at least 45 degrees. I mean, it was a pretty good little climb to get up there, and I had my clearance for that radio waves to kind of have the most performance as I can. This hill here is 4,200 feet high. That other hill is 5,300 feet high. So I have another gain of 1,000 feet at least to clear obstacles. Also, that hill over there covers my whole operational area if there was a disaster or anything like that. And then again, I can still negotiate this ridge over here to reach the valley floor towards the west. So location and getting the high ground or the high elevation is key to having intermediate distances at 10 to 50 miles radius of performance, and I do have this with this system with sort of low power. This hilltop, another reason why I didn't want to bring it up here is foot traffic. There's a lot of people that come up here to do maintenance, and there's crews up here that sort of maintains the grounds. But look at all these antennas here. This place is just congested with radio frequencies, and your little Wuxan radio could be drowned out. And there's the interference from all these antennas and stuff. If you get two transmitters transmitting at the same time, or multiple transmitters transmitting at the same time, they could actually mix signals and produce a signal that's on frequency to the frequency that you're using. See, that's all interference. Whereas the hilltop that I went to is pretty much virgin territory. There's nothing up there man-made. My box is the only thing there that's man-made. I still get a little bit of interference because it's a cheaper radio, so it doesn't have the more better electronics to filter all that stuff out, but it's good enough and it's working okay, so I don't mind it. But if I would have placed that box on this hilltop, even though I have the prime location for casting out everywhere, it would have been drowned out quite a bit by these other more powerful transmitters, and instead of getting a range of 50 miles, it might have been reduced to 25 miles or less. That would have been my sort of humble opinion estimation. All right, the repeater is located right here on this peak right here. It will cover this whole area here pretty good, and that's maybe a 7 to 10 mile radius, and a lot of it could be covered in the backcountry there. The backcountry there when I go camping and recreation and stuff like that, I got that covered. Okay, here's one of our day hike places, and we're gonna test out to see if this repeater is working for us out here. So the repeater is 4.83 miles away, and our house is 8.17 miles away. So if I could reach the repeater from here, that could relay that message over to my house with no problems whatsoever. So, okay girls, here, give me a test. Test 1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Let's see if that comes out.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yep, it comes out. So from this point, we have 8 miles of range from this location here. And we're somewhat deep in the forest. Not too deep, but deep enough.
Hey, this is their Poppy.
And we got a couple of hills in our way, and that's excellent. So we don't have phone coverage here, but we do have radio coverage here. So this is somewhat of a bowl, and that repeater is right in the middle of that particular bowl. My house is somewhere over here somewhere, and this ridge here is blocking my line of sight over to the valley way beyond there. I don't know if the haze is in the way, but that's the obstacle that I'm negotiating, so I can have comms from my house over here somewhere to the valley floor where I mostly work. So when I'm down in the valley there, I could call from way beyond there, negotiate this hill, because this ridge right here is like 3,000 feet. I'm at like 2,500 feet down here. It's going to hit the repeater way up there at 5,000 feet and relay it down to me, all due north that way. Okay guys, 17.3 miles away from the repeater, due north, and I'm in the next town over, which is 17 miles away, in a mountain community. There's a bunch of hills and stuff, rolling hills. It's in the foothills area, not big mountains, but you know, the little bumps in between. So my elevation here is 2,000 feet to 2,500 feet, something like that, and I'm gonna see if I can get in contact with the repeater. Can't do it with the HT, so I'm using the mobile, and on the mobile I can't do it. I can't hear myself, or I cannot reach the repeater using low or medium power, so I bumped it up into high power, and that's kicking out something like 45 watts off a quarter wave antenna. So let's see what that does. Radio service test 1, 2, 3, 4. Very spotty from my location here, but I have comms. If I can make that repeater activate, my household can hear it clearly from their end. It'll be scratchy from my end. Northwest. Well, I'm in a mid-sized city, or small city, about northwest of the repeater location, and I'm approximately 45.5 miles according to the GPS. So this time I'm going to use the HT, but I know I'm not going to get good reception here inside the cab, but that's why I'm going to use the mobile to receive the signal from the quarter wave antenna, standard quarter wave antenna located on top of this vehicle. So let's give it a go. Radio check, 45 miles away.
Radio check, 45 miles away.
Actually, the HT picked it up pretty good, and so did the mobile. I'm going to transmit the say again signal to repeat the transmission that's been recorded.
Radio check, 45 miles away.
That's pretty damn good. 45 miles away, and I got communications within this city here, so if I'm stuck here traveling south, I could contact my family due west that Okay, according to the GPS, I am 79 miles away from the repeater. And I'm at a sort of a crossroads between two major routes. One going north and south and one going east and west. So if I had to beat feet, and I was in this area, I would take the major roads to go back for sure, at least the first couple of days. So I'm going to give it a try with just the HT, see if I could get a response. Radio service check from 79 miles away.
Radio service check from 79 miles away.
That's 5 watts coming out of this. The repeater is 79 miles away. Due east, it's on a hill, and I'm in the valley pretty much, towards the west side of the valley, on the other side of the ridges there. So that's pretty damn good from here. You're not always going to get that perfect of a response. At 15 watts from almost 80 miles away, you are going to get a lot of dead spots here and there. It depends how much you are shadowing. But here I'm in open terrain, line of sight to the repeater, and I got perfect communication with the repeater, and that is kick-ass. I couldn't ask for anything better. So here from this major crossroads here, I know if I had to hoof it, I could get in contact with my family and say, hey, I'm on the way home. 80 miles away. It's going to take me a good 2-3 days to hoof it up there. So it's a good peace of mind to have. All right, southwest, that way. Okay, this time around I'm in a major city around 45 to 50 miles away. I would say 45 just to be conservative. Direction is southwest a little bit, more south than west, but it's going due south from the repeater. So let's give it a test. I'm in a major city now, and I got a bunch of buildings in front of me and all sorts of obstacles. And I think I'm going to have to lean forward to use my HT to do this. So let's give it a shot. Test 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's 5 watts. I'm inside the cab, 50 miles away. That's somewhat okay. And you heard it come over a little bit over the HT and a little bit over the mobile. So let me try the mobile on low power, see what I hear. Test A, B, C, D. So with the mobile kicking out, I think 5 to 6 watts out of the quarter wave antenna on top of this vehicle, I got comms from here to my house. Alright, that's pretty good. So a rough estimate of acreage or square miles that this repeater will cover would be somewhat a little less than 2,000 square miles. That is my range. From here I got at least 7 miles of solid communication where my HT or my mobile, my home base, could hit the repeater effectively and overpower anybody else on the same frequency. But the farther I get out to the distance, the less power I have to reach in there. So if there's another person using that frequency, they may or may not overpower me and block me out in a way. Not intentionally, but since it's a GMRS frequency, I only have 1 out of 8 frequencies that I could use legally. Mind you, this portable repeater setup on the GMRS radio service is perfectly legal to use if you have a license. I do have a license, so I am legal to use it as I deem fit, I guess, as long as I follow the rules. I chose the GMRS radio service because my kids are too young to study for the exam, and my wife has no interest in taking the exam or going that route. So the next viable option that I see that would work is getting a GMRS license, because there's no testing required, and one license covers the whole family with grandparents and parents and uncles and whatever. The power is pretty decent. I can't transmit no more than 50 watts. I got 5 watts out of that portable repeater with a high gain antenna that makes it act like a 15-watt radio. I could use a home base that puts out no more than 20 watts, and of course the mobile, which I could use up to 50 watts. And then the handhelds that they use 5 watts. So for my use out here, that is perfectly fine, and as you can see, it's more than enough for me to cover this area here and beyond if I'm caught out there 60 miles away or so. So with a ham license, I could have gotten a lot more capabilities, a lot more frequencies to choose from. I could have used VHF frequency, which will cast out a bit more in this hilly mountain area, a bit farther than the UHF radio, but I am faced with an obstacle with the law and what I'm allowed to do and what my family is willing to do. So I have to sort of work with what I got and what's available, and GMRS radio service is the service that pretty much fills that hole, and I am more than comfortable about using the GMRS system because it's working out pretty good. It's only on the UHF radio band, but that's okay. UHF is the next best thing to VHF for this terrain here. But if the whole family was outfitted with a ham license, each individual person would have to sort of have their own call sign, their own license. It's not one license that covers the whole family. With the ham license, you could have definitely gotten a lot more capabilities, a lot more options, a lot more power. And with a ham license, this setup will be 100% legal, where my setup, it's, I would say, 95% legal. I'm not using a GMRS specific radio. It's surplus gear, because that's the only gear out there that satisfies my requirements of what I need up there on a hilltop, or the equipment that I'm using. I'm not going to buy a substandard GMRS radio where there's so many surplus radios out there to use. That is perfectly fine, and that's just me. So my setup, I would say, is 95% legal, except for the equipment that's being used. But as far as me using the frequency, the power levels, and how I'm using it, and the license, and who is using it in my family, that is 100% legal. Well, within the next couple of months, this whole place will be covered with snow at 5,000 feet. But it melts off pretty quickly. But at 5,000 feet, I could get snow cover for a good 2 weeks straight without melting, without a melt off. So that would be extreme weather testing for the portable repeater, and see how the solar panels are holding up. To date, it's up there 14 days without failure. So that is kick-ass, and that's with a substandard battery that's on its way out. I mean, the capacity of that battery is critically reduced, but I chose it to be a substandard build to see what it takes to take it out of service from the elements. So I know the next time I come up there, it would be a fresh battery and better components and wiring. So that's going to be a longer period of time of testing, at least 5 months out there. Who knows? We'll see. Gorilla Comm going 10-10.